6 minutes late. We're in a budget workshop, and apologize for the late start here. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bartleman.
Here.
Commissioner Parker.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
And Judge Connor.
Here. And Mr. Bartleman, you're going to lead us in the prayer.
Right. Let us pray. Father, we just thank you for the blessings of this day. We thank you for the opportunity we have to serve the citizens of this county. We pray you be with us tonight as we make decisions affecting those citizens, and we just pray you give us guidance and direction that we can make life better for all. We're thankful for those who have traveled here to report to us today. Father, give them safe travel as they return to Frankfurt or wherever they may be. Father, we're so thankful for what you do for us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. We'll stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we need to approve the minutes. Let's see, was it, we had actually two sets of minutes. Approve the pre-budget workshop minutes of April 8.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. Then we've got the minutes from the regular fiscal court meeting, April 8.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that carries. Let's see. And then we have our, let's see, our arts and cultural organizations. I think I had a note here somewhere where I was supposed to call you by a certain name. What is it? Oh,
Unified Arts.
yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. Let me get. We do have the honor of having Secretary of Transportation Greg Thomas here as visiting with us. Let me get Secretary Thomas to come up, please, and address, and then we'll get to the arts and
Does he have any
culture
checks
group.
in his hand by chance?
You got one of those great big. We like those great big.
The big check.
Well, the big size and then the
Yeah.
big long numbers
Yeah,
too.
I understand. Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. We're all about, from a transportation perspective, we're all about the governor's vision and direction. His focus, of course, is jobs, and with 51,000 jobs plus and over 18 billion of investment since he assumed office, we think that's something that needs to continue, and we're focused to that end. Just a few comments about the road plan. We're going through our second cycle of SHIFT. Maybe you've heard of our scoring model that we use on projects statewide. This is our second year, and we feel like working with our legislators that we've been able to achieve quite a bit of success with it. We took a road plan that was about 200% over programmed, meaning if it made it in the program, if your project was in the road plan, it may or may not be built, to 8% over programmed, which is more realistic and you have more of a assurance that the project will actually be addressed. So along with that, the General Assembly agreed with us that we should focus more on our assets, more on bridges and pavements. And we took a road plan that was about 2/3 capital, meaning I'll call it the ribbon cutting projects, and 1/3 asset maintenance or preservation of our assets, to about 50-50. So I think all of that is really good. And that kind of brings us to the reason I'm here tonight. We're trying to make our way out to as many fiscal courts as we can to talk to the judges and to the commissioners about what their needs are. The governor is highly focused on infrastructure. That's the way to keep the economy moving, the way to keep jobs moving and growing. We realize that there's not just 27,000 miles that the state maintains and owns, but there's 80,000 miles total that we all kind of share in. And to that end, the governor does have some discretionary funding that we're trying to allocate and do it the right way. And so we're looking for any projects that you may have which would lead to direct job growth or retention of jobs, or you may have some critical unfunded just repair jobs that really need to happen. And so we're making our way around to the fiscal courts and asking if you've got some priorities to let us know. Maybe we can partner with you on that. Of course, sure, you've heard of the Bridging Kentucky program. We're trying to address 1,000 bridges across the state. I think McCracken County, I think Kyle said we had, you guys had, I think, 11 and 3 that's just been let. So you're part of that program certainly, but if there are other needs, then we'd like to hear about it. And this also helps me and our team develop the next road plan and be able to address our legislators in terms of what the needs are across the state. So, but that's really all I had. If you have a list of projects that you want us to consider, Kyle's here. I'll turn it over to him. But thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we're here to listen. And if the projects don't have to come tonight, certainly, but if you have some projects that you want considered in the governor's discretionary fund, then please let us know. So if it's okay, I'll turn it over to Kyle to talk about a little bit about McCracken County and some projects in there, Judge. So
All right.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming down and having time with us.
Sure.
Well, as the Secretary mentioned, thank y'all for having us. He mentioned that we have about 11 bridges in the Bridging Kentucky program that'll be let here over the next 4 years. 3 of those, as he mentioned, have already been let between January and March. We have a couple more that'll come this year. Actually, McCracken County is blessed that the bulk of the bridges that fall in this Bridging Kentucky program fall in the first 4 years. The program as a whole is a 6-year program, but like I say, they all fall in the first 2 budget cycles, which is good. We're going to be spending a little over $2 million this year. As it currently sits, that could be expanded for resurfacing across the county on various roads, both what we call MP roads and then rural secondary roads. We have several other projects that we're going to be doing as the summer goes along. We've got a reconstruction project that we're going to do along Joe Clifton Drive from Jefferson Street to Laclede, and then we'll incorporate some restriping and kind of reconfigure the road all the way from Auto Zone there at Jackson Street all the way up to Noble Park, Park Avenue. Of course, we got our big project going on right now out at Exit 4, the double crossover diamond. We ramped up on it about 3 weeks ago, so people are really starting to feel the pinch, I guess you say, of traffic control. I get lots of calls on that one.
Just wait till they close the exit and the highway. You'll really get a lot of calls on that one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we let that cat out of the bag about a week ago officially. So, yeah, that'll be early summer, right after Memorial Day that'll be taking place. But anyhow, I mean, on that project specifically, things are going really well. Jim Smith Contracting is our contractor on it, and they've been really on top of their game. And they've always been good to work with as far as us at the cabinet. So they have a very good schedule they put forth. We've been blessed with pretty good working weather thus far. They're concentrating a lot of their efforts at night, so that's helping minimize some traffic impacts. But I'm optimistic that we actually may complete that project ahead of schedule. We had it put in there as November 15th because we didn't want to be out there when Black Friday came along, and specifically I didn't want to feel the heat and lose my job over it. So we put it as November 15th, but I'm optimistic that we actually probably are looking more like first or second week of October because things are going good. But anyhow, that's kind of the bigger projects we have. As I said, we got the resurfacing. We have some district money that we try to spend throughout the year. Of course, like you all, our fiscal year will change over here in July, so we'll have some more money infused in our district budget. We got other things we're looking at, a couple cross drain replacements, small bridges that we can convert into a culvert style. Matter of fact, one's out on 1565. I just signed the authorization today to purchase the pipe to replace that bridge we have closed there. So anyhow, we got several things like that going on that you should see throughout the year. But if you got any other questions specifically, I'll try my best.
I have a question. I live in the Reedland area, not far from your district office. What's the status of improvements on US 60 from the Clarks River to the new bridge? I know there's been some changes that have been in the works for a while, and
It has.
that's a kind of a dangerous area. There's been, I think, 6 people killed in the last 7 years in that area. Is that still on a list somewhere? Or
It
what's
is.
planned for that?
The secretary mentioned the SHIFT program. So it has been a project that has been on the 6-year plan via the SHIFT program now for this being the second cycle, as he mentioned. It is one that we in the district sponsored. Recently, we went around and met with all the county judges. We met with Judge and the mayor here and some other folks. It was one that we as the district sponsored outside of that window of the local sponsorship. So it's one that that we're pushing forward in the program, and based on how it scores and if funding is available, then we proceed on with some design work and things like that. It's not a project that you're going to see any kind of actual construction work being undertaken in the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's probably a 5 to 8 year range project, but yes, it's still on the list, and it's still up there on our radar.
Okay. I've got another question too. It's not a McCracken County project, but on the Tennessee River Bridge, did you assess penalties on that project? And I'm just curious about that, because that was the project it wasn't from heaven, but.
Yeah. Yes, we did assess penalties on that project. The completion date on that project was November 15th, so effective November 16th, we started assessing the penalties, and don't quote me as to how much they were. I mean, it was, I think $2,500 a day comes to mind, but when we actually called the work substantially complete, I mean, they were well over $200,000 in liquidated damages.
And they are required to pay it. There's any litigation or any excuses why they didn't do it, or I mean, will they?
No, I mean, we have assessed those penalties, and unless something else changes as far as litigation elsewhere, but we in the district have assessed those penalties, and we're not wavering on that now.
I'm just curious. Thank
Yeah.
you.
There's an intersection in our Midtown area, LaBelle Street and Lone Oak Road, that anytime I talk to the city about it, they explain to me it's a state route. Do you know where I'm talking about?
Are you talking about by the old Coke plant?
Yes.
Yes.
And I know there was recently been installed a crosswalk there. Is that a state responsibility for the installation? Where does the state begin and end?
Sure.
And its responsibility?
So the state route is if you're coming from Hannon Plaza and you head up beside Paducah Middle School and you come to that intersection, that is all state route. You make the hard left and then the immediate right beside Independence Bank to go on to 32nd Street, as everybody else knows it. That is the state route there. So once you clear the intersection and you go in between Independence Bank and what used to be the Coke plant, then you're on a city route there. So our state jurisdiction is up to the intersection, make the left, and then continue on down 32nd.
So there's that one little building there that if it wasn't there, you could just kind of do away with that intersection?
Yes, it was actually one of them that we have on our SHIFT program to evaluate with some sort of a reconfiguration. At one time, there had been talk about a roundabout there. I think that lost favor, and there's some other things that's been explored. So it is a project that is on our SHIFT program, and one that we have to try to score and see where it ranks.
Well, the pedestrian traffic in that area has increased significantly in the last 5 years, and my daughter's kind of gotten past the age of walking from Paducah Middle to the coffee shop, but it was always something that I had fear of.
Yeah.
I think it still needs some redesign to make safer.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's on our list of evaluation, see where it ranks, and then we'll take it from there as far as funding goes. But yeah, it's still on our radar. Yeah, and just real quick to tie into what you said there about pedestrian, that's one of the things too that we've been taking a bigger focus on district-wise here with some of our projects. I alluded to a project there that we were going to do along Joe Clifton. On Joe Clifton Drive. And the bigger project incorporating all the way back to AutoZone. So one of the things we're looking at there is perhaps adding bike lanes along the existing corridor. I'm just trying to look at this bigger picture of pedestrian flow, especially in and around the city area.
What about Lyden Road where we fix Husband's Road and Lyden Road where we just done all that construction work out there? Lyden Road torn up quite a bit. It's still in pretty rough shape. That's a state road, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Any plans on resurfacing that or fixing? I've had 2 or 3 calls, the reason I'm asking.
Yes, no, I've gotten several calls too. I was actually out there just this past week, so on the outlet end of those pipes that we extended underneath the new alignment of Husband's Road there, which are part of the overflow of the levee system for the city and all, our head wall on the outlet end didn't fare so well after all the flooding events. So we've actually got to go in and repair the head wall, and because of the steepness of the slope, we feel like that may have caused some of the issue with the head wall. So we're looking at going in there and actually extending those pipes about another 20 feet, adding some more embankment. Perhaps we can take down some of that guardrail. So because of all that, we haven't put the final surface yet on Lyden Road because we're going to be hauling more material in and out. And then once we're done with that, then we'll finish and we'll pave it all, and it'll be fixed back permanently.
Is there still a plan on North Friendship Road in Lone Oak, between North Friendship and Blamble, to straighten that out?
There is. That was another one that's on our shift program. It ranks really high, actually. It's one that we sponsored as a district outside of the metrics here with the city and the county. So yeah, we have a project that we look at that goes from Lone Oak Road. We actually added a segment to it as part of our process to take it actually all the way out to some connection out on Old 60, somewhere west of where the new Menards is going in, because we feel like there is merit to having some sort of a connection from the T intersection there of North Friendship and Olivet Church out to 60 and New 60. So yeah, it's
Last question, any plans on alleviating Highway 45 traffic? Have they got anything in the future of a ramp at Old Mayfield Road, interstate ramp?
it was one that we added back into the shift process just to see where it would score. There was some dynamics with it several years back. Actually, I saw Randy come in. He can probably attest to this as well from his days with the cabinet. The federal highways, they govern regulations on interstates. I think they had a lot of heartburn with a series of ramps. Basically, when you get off it, when you enter into Paducah on I-24, as you know, you got exit 16, then you got exit 11, then you got exit 7, then 4, then 3. I think they had some heartburn with how many exit and entry points we had in such a short distance that was the major hurdle to get over with any additional ramps.
Thank you.
I have another question. The SHIFT program rates projects statewide, is that correct? Or does it rate them by district?
It does rank them statewide. However, it's broken out into regions. So there's 4 regions. So we actually are only in a pool with District 1, 2, and 3, which would be Paducah. If you're looking at the bigger areas, would be Paducah, Madisonville, Hopkinsville, Bowling Green.
So when they rate those projects, we're not competing with Louisville, we're just competing in those 4 districts?
That's
Is that
correct. That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
That
How
is
about the bridge at Henderson, where is that at?
That's one I'd have to actually defer back to the secretary on.
Because that's important for the interstate.
Sure.
Even though it's not real close by.
Yeah, we're, I think we're rolling along the lines of trying to, of course, I think the preferred route, we're trying to zero in on that. A lot of the environmental work, I think, will be done this year. It really comes down to funding. We've got, I think there's around $400 million. If you consider what tolling will provide, there's about a $400+ million gap in funding. So a lot hinges on this year's road plan and our legislators and trying to get the funding incorporated into the plan. But Indiana, I talked to Commissioner McGinnis, and they're fully on board. And so I think it's a matter of finding the financing and then moving forward. But I can tell you both states are full steam ahead.
And I guess it's probably hard to fund a new bridge over in the Wickliffe area to replace that bridge down there, the 51 bridge. It's 51.
Yeah, you got it.
No, actually, we have a design project that we awarded back in the late fall to Michael Baker and Associates, and they are in the process of designing a new bridge for replacement of the Carroll Bridge. The hang-up we have there from a funding standpoint really lies more with Illinois. We have a bi-state agreement, so it's really a shared 50-50. I don't have to test too much about Illinois struggles, so that's That's just a hang up from exactly when that thing can go to a construction lady. As far as Kentucky's concerned, we're proceeding on with design work, and we'll have it ready as far as construction work.
I mean, that bridge is already an issue, and it could be a worse issue as time goes by.
Yeah,
It's
we
really,
so back in the fall when we started looking at when the dynamics of money being available, especially from the Illinois side, to actually go to construction, we sent our structures folks out, and they did a pretty thorough inspection, kind of made a very detailed list of what all they felt like could have some money thrown at it to continue the sustainability of that bridge. So we're looking at around a $5 to $7 million contract that we're going to try to put together, maybe middle part of this year, fall part of the year, to do some more rehab to expand the life of it for, upwards of another 10 years if need be.
I got one more that I promise I'm done. How about I-69 in Tennessee? Has there been any communication with Tennessee on when they're going to do their, I think they've already got a lot of the work done down there. Anything on?
Yeah, Tennessee's been working on I-69 from Union City headed down towards Troy in that area for a little while now. So our portion of I-69 going from Mayfield headed south down the Parkway, we are progressing forward with final design work on the section from south of Mayfield to exit 1. The primary part of that project being reconstruction of the Wingo exit there at exit 14, because it's a toll booth style, has to be converted to a diamond interchange. And then Tennessee is taking the lead on the actual interchange at exit 1, because the bulk of it is going to fall on the Tennessee side. So Kentucky has a preferred alignment. Tennessee agrees with it. I think Tennessee's been working through some budgetary issues. They just elected a new governor, obviously, back in November. So I think, they're all still trying to wrap their heads around where the direction needs to go.
Again, that's another important link to the I know there's a decent bridge over the Mississippi River down that way,
Yes.
so that would be good.
Yes. Yeah.
Any idea when Tennessee will begin?
I don't know. So, yeah.
Good.
Again, we're trying to work that into the next plan as well, and see where
Right.
we are with that, so. But I can tell you that 69 is a priority of the governor's, priority of the cabinet, so no problem with the priorities, just
Right.
working with our General Assembly to find the funding, so.
Right. I know he mentioned that many times when
Yeah.
I've talked to him. He's aware of 69 and the importance that would have for development of that.
Yeah,
that
the
area.
jobs and the economy and movement,
Yeah.
and for the entire western Kentucky, so.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask one other thing before you squirt out of here. This double crossover diamond and closing the ramps out there at I-24. I know when we talked about it back months ago, there was talk about signage was going to be very important and getting the message out to people. And we're coming up on in the Thanksgiving area time frame, and people shopping for Christmas and all of that. And so I'm curious about, do you have, what's your plan on what kind of signs to put? Do you have some local people that can maybe give some input on that? My real concern, I guess, is not only the and I understand the long-term benefit of the change, but the inconvenience that it'll provide and frustration and that sort of thing to the shoppers, but also to the shop owners out there. There's a potential huge economic loss, I think, from doing that. People say we're just not going to mess with it. We'll go to another area and stay out of all that. And, so is there some plan to, the signs already maybe made up, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, so as far as the complete closure of the interchange, that's only going to be, so that should start sometime around the second week of June. Granted, it's weather permitting, but that's what I see ballpark-wise. That will only last for a total of 6 weeks, and then everything in its entirety will be back open. in its final configuration too. So what we're going to have is for up to the first 2 weeks of this closure period, only the off ramps at the interstate will be closed. So your westbound off ramp and your eastbound off ramp, you'll still be able to utilize 60 itself underneath the interstate. And then following that 2 week period, the contractor will have up to 4 weeks. So there's where the total of 6 weeks comes in. They'll have up to 4 weeks to have a complete closure of 60 underneath the interstate, as well as all the ramps on and off. So we'll be closing 60 just east of James Sanders and just west of Coleman Road, but everything else about the 60 corridor will be left open. Yes, we have a very thorough signage plan for a detour that we'll be installing once we get closer to that date, when we have that hard date of when the closure is going to be. We'll be looking at detouring traffic if you're coming from the east headed west, off there at Lone Oak Road, using the access ramp up to 62. And then I actually just met with the city last week, and they've given me tentative approval. I don't have anything signed yet, but I feel good about it, to utilize Pecan Drive as the detour route into the backside of the mall. Generally, we have to detour on state routes unless we get a concession or an agreement with the county or the city. So we're going to try to use Pecan Drive since that's your most direct link. And then coming from the west headed east, obviously we'll use exit 3 up Olivet Church. Up Olivet Church and into the backside of New Holt Road. But again, that'll only be for up to a total of 6 weeks. So they have to have everything about the interchange opened up by August 11th. So I had people ask me the other day, well, that sounds like 2 months. No, so August 11th is the drop dead date of having it all back open. Whenever they arbitrarily pick that they're ready to close it, they only have a total of 6 weeks. So if that happens on June the 10th, then they only have 6 weeks and they have to have it all back open. But they can go as far out as having 6 weeks backed up from August 11th, if that makes sense. We time that around school being out, basically. But then the complete project would be finished by that November 15th deadline, and as I said earlier, more optimistically, probably around the second week of October. I did meet last week also with the Paducah Hospitality Association. So several of those businesses were there. I explained to them kind of the whole gamut of what's going to be taking place over the next several months. They had a lot of questions. I had the drawing there and showed them. They seemed pretty at ease with understanding what was going to go on. Obviously, as we get closer, we're going to put out more press releases as well. And then as time goes on, we'll also be trying to meet with as many people out there as we can. I've met with the Cafaro themselves 3 times over the last week and a half. So, they understand what's going on from a mall standpoint, and they're helping convey the message to all their tenants as well. So, yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks for
All right.
the opportunity.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the Unified Arts and Culture Group. They wanted to come back and you were here 2 weeks ago, and you're back to fill
We
us in
appreciate
a
you
little.
inviting us back. Commissioner Bartleman asked for some facts on arts education. So the arts education part of this, of what we do, the different groups have different levels of arts education that we do. Probably the Carson Center is the biggest economic impact of all the arts groups, but then you have like the Market House does most of what our programming is arts education, but we all do arts education, and that's the hardest thing to fund because that has the least return of earned income dollars. That's what we usually are trying to get funded by grants. So you can see direct spending on arts education last year was $1,126,339, and we had 114,984 student interactions. And using the formula that we've got, we kind of broke that down because you asked about McCracken County schools in particular. So you can see that about 41% of all the students that participate in arts education are from McCracken County schools. So that's about 47,000 student interactions that we do. On the back of this piece of paper is what each of the organizations, some of the different programming that we do in the different schools that we go to bring it. But mostly, arts education is really bringing the arts out to the kids. It is going into the classrooms. It is helping them with communication skills, with self-confidence, of doing all the soft skills that make you successful in life. And that's where the schools, many of them are asking us for more and more help with this, and we're kind of maxed out as far as the amount of funding that we can put towards this, because we're already subsidizing a lot of what we do with the school systems, with arts education. So, and we've seen the state grants from, I mean, I've been with the theater now for 35 years. The state grants have gone down to about 30% of what they used to be. They used to fund 7.5% of our annual operating budget to do things like arts education, to do the organizational expenses that we have. Now they're funding 20%. I mean, 20% of our total operations. They're funding about 1.5% to 2% of our annual operating budget for us. And then we go to the schools, and a lot of the schools are having the classes going to the teachers, and the teachers are actually raising funds from the parents to bring us in to help with that. So it has been with the funding models that lately the schools have pulled back quite a bit because they're unsure what their funding is. And we've seen drops in the number of students coming to school matinees. We've seen drops in a lot of things. So we've actually, I know that the other groups like Market House are providing more free programming to the schools to try to make sure that the kids are getting what they need so that nobody is falling through the cracks. Do you have any questions I can
Thank
answer?
you. That's good information.
I think that's pretty neat. 80% or 82% of the kids that use it are from the city and county.
Mhm.
So we're investing back into our kids.
Thank you. These are convincing numbers.
Thank you very much.
What was the, you had it was like $67,000 or something like that?
Yeah, we asked for 1% because the economic impact of the organization spending is $6.6 million. So we asked for $66,000 when we did our proposal. And that was, as I said, 1% of the total economic impact of direct spending by the arts organizations.
What about the Columbia? Now, that's totally separate, or is,
They are a part of the Maiden Alley group.
that's in these numbers? Or?
But what we do is we take out anything that is capital expenses, depreciation expenses, in-kind expenses. We take out those numbers out of there. So what you have is direct spending that we do in the community.
I am in favor of a budget that includes the 66,000 contribution. I don't think that's necessarily on the table today, but as we're preparing it, I'm in favor.
You mean in the new budget?
Yes, in the new budget.
Good.
Are you making a motion to put it up to the new budget, or what are you?
No, I'm just communicating that they've been here twice, and I want them to know that I've heard them, and that as we're preparing the new budget, I'm in favor of it being in the new budget.
Well, I tend to be in favor of that too, so we'll make sure that's in there. We thank you guys for coming. And I work with a lot of them a lot of times, and I know that their heart's in the right place, and they are tight on money, so.
And it is hard because a lot of what we do is not the big public stuff that you see. It's the stuff that happens in the schools with the kids, and they go home and their parents see what happens with their lives from the programming we do, but it is not something that you get to see every day out on the stages or in the other places that we do. So we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, then we have a budget transfer.
It is ordered the necessary cash transfers in the amount of $142,038.20 be made in order to pay county bills approved April 22nd, 2019.
Is there a motion?
So made.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. And we've got our accounts payable.
It is ordered to approve the vouchers claims register from April 8th, 2019 to April 22nd, 2019 to show county bills in the amount of $306,340.83 were paid.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. Let's see, how are we on court order? Not too bad on court orders, just through K. Madam Clerk?
Maybe I can make it through tonight without having
Fail.
an episode, yeah.
I got great faith in you.
Do what?
I have great faith in you.
Okay. It is ordered to pay the McCracken County Humane Society $18,125 for the month of April 2019.
So made.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered to pay the fiscal court clerk $50 for the month of April 2019.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered to approve the monthly distribution to the McCracken County Conservation District for April 2019 in the amount of $2,446.92.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered to accept the resignation of Brittany Blades Lavasser from the McCracken County Child Support Office effective April 15th, 2019.
So made.
Whoa.
Second.
No, you're not done. You're rolling.
Let me finish.
I'll finish up then.
She has no accumulated vacation days and no accumulated sick days.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that effective April 29th, 2019, Jesse McIntosh be hired as a full-time deputy jailer at an hourly rate of $12 per hour less statutory deductions, all of which are subject to further order of the court.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that effective April 29th, 2019, Troy Busby be hired as a full-time deputy jailer at an hourly rate of $12 per hour, less statutory deductions, all of which are subject to further order of the court.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered that effective April 29th, 2019, John Feltz be hired as a full-time deputy jailer at an hourly rate of $12.25 per hour, less statutory deductions, all of which are subject to further order of the court.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered that effective April 16th, 2019, full-time deputy jailer Chris Springer's hourly salary rate increase by 25 cents due to the shift differential. His hourly rate will be $12.25 per hour, less statutory deductions, all of which are subject to further order of the court.
So made.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
Bill.
Bill.
Bill got it.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered that Joe Denton be hired as a part-time employee at the McCracken County Road Department effective May 1st, 2019, at a rate of $12 per hour, less statutory deductions.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered that $62,500 be paid to Greater Paducah Economic Development, same being the fourth quarter budget allocation for fiscal year 2018-2019.
So made.
Is there a second?
Second. I have a discussion.
All right, discussion.
A couple of months ago, I think it was in January, GPEDC sent us a statement requesting money for Entree Paducah. And we withheld giving them that money while we asked some questions about it. And we were told that, yeah, that's not operating anymore. We really didn't mean to send you that bill, if I'm correct on that. We had made a payment earlier in the year, I think of $12,500 to Entree Paducah. And the records I've seen, Entree Paducah has not been in really operation for a couple of years. And I was wondering if, I don't want to do anything regarding this payment, we can make this payment, but I wonder if we should send a letter to them and request a refund of the earlier money that we paid to them, since Entree Paducah was not operating at the time we got the bill for that and we paid it. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know what they were, how they were operating, if they had expenses. We can certainly find out what their status was at that time. I did discuss that with Glenn Anderson about making that second payment, and said that we were not going to make it since they were not functioning to our knowledge, and he didn't disagree that was a reasonable thing to do.
I looked at their articles of incorporation on the Secretary of State's websites, and they had expired, I think, 2 years ago for Entree Paducah. They didn't renew their, they didn't file the right paperwork, and they didn't renew the articles of incorporation. So from that standpoint, it ceased to exist. I don't remember the exact dates, but it was at least 2 years ago. I don't know if there's any thought or not of just making the request, since
I don't see any harm in asking them what they used that 12,500 for. You're talking about the second quarter.
I think it was 2 payments. I think it was 25,000.
it's 25,000 we paid them.
I think we paid 2 payments.
So
in
we
this
paid the
fiscal year.
first and the second quarter.
I believe
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
Well,
I would support that request. I think they ought to be able to show this is what we did.
Do you know any details on it, Steve, any more than that, or?
She's correct. As I recall, paid the first 2 quarters of this fiscal year. Monica was who they worked for a period, I don't know when it started or when it ended, but she was operationally inside the organization, the Andre Paducah piece. That's Commissioner Bartleman, that's been within the last 2 years. I think she left the organization, I want to say in November or December of last year. I've been there maybe about a year.
Yeah.
I think there was a period there where it was operating. I don't know what happened with their Secretary of State registration, but she was operating in that space as the entrepreneurial.
I kind of thought Allison Harpo was running, wasn't she doing some work?
She was
for-
doing the marketing piece.
I didn't know if that was somehow related to Entree Paducah or
I
not.
don't know.
Well, they
Again,
certainly.
I just want to,
There certainly, I think, was at least 1 quarter that I don't think they had anybody functionally in that spot.
You gonna
At
check
the
on the
time
last
that-
2?
I mean, at the time that we paid them that second quarterly payment, they may not have been.
I think that's somewhere in that second quarter of our fiscal year is when there was nobody in that position. That was
Yeah.
prior to Scott Darnell.
And
it
I
won't
don't
hurt to
think
ask the question.
this court hasn't voted to
Right.
pay any of the Entree
Right.
Paducah funding.
But some of that was in this budget year, though. So
Right.
if we just ask the questions, can you check on it and report back to us? And
All right.
Well, I think it would be, I think it's coming to the time that the public would like to hear a presentation from GPED. I know they've been doing some reforming. That's been the focus of their attention, but I'm certainly in favor of making the payment, but I think it would be, I think there is a public interest in hearing a presentation of the past year's activity with regard to the economic development effort.
Well, why don't Steve or I will contact GPED and find out the details of when Entree Paducah was functioning, when they weren't, and invite Glenn or whoever to come and just kind of give us a presentation.
I think that would be good, and as we're looking forward, I know they're going to want to be in the new budget. I'm interested in having a formal intra-local agreement with them where we agree to continue to fund and they agree to give us and the public information as it can be shared.
Right.
I think they need to document how they spent the money we sent them for Entree Paducah. If they could, just show us some evidence of where it was spent.
Okay.
And I agree, I think we need some accounting before we consider the next budget cycle. We need them to come in give us a detailed public plan on what they're doing.
All right.
Thank you.
And now that was discussion, but there was no opposition then to paying them the
No.
62.5, right?
We need to vote on
We need to vote.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered that former coroner Dan Sims be credited for 42 sick days to the Kentucky retirement system.
it. I'm gonna make this motion so we can get it on the floor for discussion.
All right. The second for discussion?
Second for discussion.
All right. Any discussion?
Steve, okay, Steve, got last.
Pam pulled some records where, just to validate that, we did pay into other elected officials sick time, but it was only for that period. That was when they were an employee, and nothing for when they were, if they were an elected official prior to the operative date of January 1st, 2007. And so to remind everybody, the 42 days, Mr. Sims originally submitted 130 days. The 42 days represents the maximum number of sick days he would have accumulated from the time he was a deputy sheriff and prior to him being appointed coroner in October of 1995.
How many of those sick days were immediately prior to him being appointed coroner? You know, he worked here and he left and then he came back.
42.
Well, there was a total of 42 days, but there was a break in that employment period, right?
There was a break, I think, evidently of a couple of years, and then he had asked for the number of days from when he was coroner up until the ordinance passed effective January 1st, 2007. We said no. We think that means effective January 1st, 2007. We don't do that anymore. So rolled back those 88 days and said the 42 months you were an employee is what you would be eligible for. This goes back to the years where we didn't do payroll for the sheriff. It was before we fee pooled. They wrote separate checks. Just the record keeping, frankly, wasn't that good.
Do you recall his employment period, when he first came to work, when he left, when he came back, and when he became coroner? Do you remember the dates of that?
Pam, do you remember? There were two-year periods, basically.
I think it started in 82.
Started in 1982.
Like 82, 84.
To 84, and then
back in
93 to
80.
95,
Yes,
something like that.
Can't remember.
Yes, it was 2 years immediately prior to August of 1995. So 93 to 95, and then 82 to 84.
I was a junior in high school.
And what's that?
I was a junior in high school,
In the 90s?
82 to 83.
I've already been out of college for 12 years. Let me ask a question. For a 2-year period, how many sick days would he have earned?
Day a month.
So if it was 24, and there was no proof, we had no documentation as to how many sick days he might have taken or might not have taken.
Can neither prove nor disprove. I've asked Dan if he could locate any old records. I haven't received anything yet.
How much would this cost the county?
So it's not like being paid for 42 days. It's not like you'd receive 6 weeks of pay for this. It would be the employer's share of the value of that time that would go into retirement. It's a time purchase, not a cash infusion into the retirement system. Dan would not receive money for it. His retirement benefit would go up a small increment
But
for
what would
42
it
sick
cost-
days.
What would it cost us to pay?
We would put in for the 42 days, and then takes quite a while. They'll actually send us a bill. Probably takes up to a year.
So do we have a dollar amount, or we have any clue,
There's some strange calculations
So,
they do. I'd have
so
to go
they,
back and
they
look.
make the calculation based on, in Dan's case, it'll be a calculation of his high 5 years. And they will back calculate that into what is the employer's share of 42 days based on the average of his 5 years, and even right granular down to how much he made his last month.
So he will be getting credit for sick.
We're not paying him for 42 days, though. We're paying him for the employer's share of a time purchase in the retirement system, and I'm guessing we're talking several hundreds of dollars here. So when you see some really big ones, when you approve like a year, when you see numbers like that, they run into the thousands of dollars for those bills, but 42 days is not going to be a real big number.
And so, Steve, when you look, or Pam, I guess I don't really understand quite. It would seem that when he was elected, that would be the time, not just him, but anybody who went through, go from a hired position to an elected position, that there would be some accounting and perhaps take accounting of that amount of time that he had credited for sick time, if there was some. But we don't have any, there's just no record that exists as to whether he ever took any sick time. There's no, monthly accounting, here Dan Sims took a sick day. We're just saying, we're assuming that he never took a sick day during this entire period.
That would be correct.
Okay.
We do not centrally track accruals for vacation or sick. Those records are kept at the departmental level. Oftentimes we see employees keep their own records and then submit them when they retire. We do a better job now of saying, like you read some tonight, when people leave or retire, we indicate for the record of how many days they have. If, like the one we read tonight, if they were tier 3, it wouldn't matter. Wouldn't matter if they were tier 2. It only would relate to tier 1 employees. And we're kind of running through those and running out of those. It's getting very unusual now that we see a former employee that has a time claim going back to the 1980s. We're probably trickling most of those out because they're all retired out now. But those record-keeping requirements would have been departmental. You've had umpteen changes of elected officials and how they kept records at that point. It's really, I did receive what the sheriff department was tracking for, with just whole numbers of here's the number. It's just a math, but it's the same simple math of how many months did you work, how many sick days would have you received at that time. So I think going forward, and we never know, we can't from an accounting standpoint say how much is that going to cost, because it depends when they retire and how much what their average of their high 5 is. So we don't even take a stab at guessing what that might be, because we receive that bill from the retirement cabinet later on. So Pam, in your first 6 months here, how much have we paid out in sick leave retirement bills? It's not a significant number, right?
Well, like you said, it takes them quite a while to send the bill, so we have seen some big ones come through from people that have left some time ago. And even if they leave and don't retire, if they left here and went to another job, it's when they retire and send in that paperwork that they actually then ask for confirmation of the days and send me a bill.
But we're running out of employees that fit that mold, because they removed the sick time addition, so new employees don't get that privilege anymore, and the old tier 1s like like this are, these are frankly an unusual case now. To see it go back to the 1980s.
But as I understand it, we're basically using sick days that he might have accumulated from 1982 to 83 to increase his retirement package,
Yes, very
which
small amount.
I think generally the public hates that operation of sick days anyway. But I mean, is that what we're supposed to do? You know, one of the things in.
We participate in the sick leave program with the state. You have no choice but to add their sick time to the retirement.
So the issue, we're not making a policy decision on that. The issue is, do we think he was sick or not? That's the issue?
Yes, the number of days is the issue and the tracking of the time, I guess, because there is no records.
However, all of these, the fiscal court runs through, it's a bit of an honor system coming from the employees and the departments, because we do not centrally track that. Pam and I have that on our list of good intentions to begin tracking those through payroll, since fiscal court now writes virtually all the payroll checks for all county employees. We're going to, our system is capable of doing it, and we have the good intention of beginning to track that through payroll.
Yeah. I want to protect that commissioner for 30 years from now who's trying to decide whether somebody was sick in 2018. It just seems an unfair position to put any of us in.
We've had a precedent on this issue. It came up in about 2006 or 2007 when the county got a bill from the retirement system to pay for sick leave accumulated for
An elected
former
official.
judge and a former commissioner and for a former sheriff, Frank Augustus. Frank Augustus was the only one who had worked for the county prior to becoming sheriff. And they requested a payment of $60-some thousand for Sheriff Augustus. At that time, the fiscal court asked Sheriff Augustus, or former Sheriff Augustus, for documentation regarding his sick leave, and he was not able to provide the documentation, and the fiscal court in 2017 did not pay for his accumulated, or his claimed accumulated sick leave. So we do have a precedent, not with this fiscal court, this group of this body, but of the fiscal court as a whole. That issue came up before, and the fiscal court said without documentation, they would not pay the state retirement fund into the state retirement system for the commissioners, the judge, or for Frank Augustus for the time that he worked prior to becoming an elected official. So we do have some precedent where it was not paid in the past without documentation.
Meaning that in those instances, once the employee became an elected official, the time for him to make the claim for the sick days was then triggered at that point rather than.
Right. We did that with Sheriff Augustus, and I think that arranged Sheriff Carter. When he became sheriff, we did the proper approval and paperwork to bring him up to date to the day he became sheriff. And I think that's happened with other officials too. I think it happened with the
At some
clerk.
point, we got much better at doing that, even prior to the Augustus case. You commonly saw as employees either left the organization or became elected, there was a gather up the days amount, get agreement with the fiscal court or the judge's office, and run an order through. Interestingly, in the case of Sims, he rolled directly from being a deputy sheriff to he was appointed coroner prior to the election, and he just went from being an employee to a different kind of employee, and there was evidently no one thought to run an order through documenting the days at that point, unfortunately.
I think that during his first 2-year stint, at the end of that first 2-year stint, when he left employment, he should have requested the retirement or the accumulated sick days at that time. And apparently that didn't happen.
Did not happen.
It did
It's
not
not of
happen.
record.
So I don't think we can go back to those 2 years. To
Well,
me, the
did it
question
not
is.
happen, or
Did not.
Just not get, could it have happened and not been recorded?
We find in our record when he started and when he stopped working, but there was no mention of accumulated time. We don't know if they paid him out for vacation days. The sheriff may well have at that point paid him for his vacation days, but we don't know.
But that's, I mean, that's the point, is it was so loose.
It was loose.
Record keeping, so how would we know whether he was paid sick time then or not?
Because we've never paid, you cannot get cashed out. We didn't have a cash option for sick time. The only time you could be paid for sick is when you retired. When you went to the retirement system, said I wanted to retire. Then and only then, there's a one-time shot at adding in your sick leave.
But that was retired. What position did he hold, 82 to 84?
82 to 84, deputy sheriff, and then he came back in 93, and he was a deputy sheriff until, the record indicates, until August of 93. Then there was no court order, but then there's an order that he got appointed, and he got appointed in and started in the 1st of October, 1st of October. There was no interruption in his second employment term, and not to this day. So we would be recording his time at this point. And even when he left the coroner, so this is his leaving his second continuous employment, even though he started coroner in 95, he actually began his employment in 93. So there's roughly, 2 years of would have been accumulated sick time at that time.
Well, so the motion's to pay him for 42 days.
We tabled this came up before, and we tabled this 2 weeks ago or whenever he last met.
But when I say paid, he be credited for 42 days to the Kentucky retirement system. Any more discussion? Ready to take a vote on it? All in favor of paying the 42 days, say aye. None? All opposed?
Aye.
That is lost.
So it was defeated, is that correct?
Pardon me?
It was defeated.
Yes. All right, board appointments.
It is ordered that Kevin McEwen be appointed to the Industrial Development Authority Board effective April 22nd, 2019, for a term expiring April 22nd, 2023.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered that Joni Hogenkamp be appointed to the Community Scholarship Board effective April 22nd, 2019, for a term expiring upon further order of the court.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
I think I'm the only one that voted on that.
Carries.
It is ordered that Ariane W. Dillon be appointed to the Board of Assessment effective April 22nd, 2019, for a term expiring April 22nd, 2022.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. And we come to executive session. We do have one matter to.
I want to add one to that,
Do
a legal matter.
Oh,
In addition, we have an issue that could bring the litigation.
proposed or pending litigation?
Yes.
Okay, so here we have two. One being future sale or acquisition of specific parcel of real estate permitted by KRS 61 8110-1B, and then proposed or pending litigation is permitted by KRS 61 8110-1C. I think that's all.
Yes.
Covers it. The motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, and that carries. And so let's see, what do we have? That's all we had. I don't suspect that we're gonna have any further business, any announcement from this. I think it's just for discussion, isn't it?
Yes,
I just.
that's right.
Tell people we're done. I think we are. We'll just come back after that session and don't expect to take any action or announce what discussion was, and we'll just come back to an adjournment then shortly, hopefully. And we'll stand in executive session then.
Julie doesn't need to stay,
I
does she?
need to stay.
No?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Eddie will second.
Okay.
Everybody vote in favor, right there.
There you go.
Be direct.